So this fictional story is basically your own way of getting people, Nigerians, Africans, to begin to take a look at the way they relate with their environment and how they can change their environment, basically, isn't it?
Yes, because also for me, I began to see that, I mean, I don't know if it's true, but I'd heard that they'd removed history from our curriculum, you know, and so I have a lot of concern for how we're raising young people. Okay, so they're pretty much being raised by television. And growing up, we didn't have that. I mean, so weekdays, we didn't watch TV. So if you didn't watch TV, you had other things you had to do. You read, you know. So even if you don't have to read, you must know your history. Because if you don't know where you're coming from, how will you know where you're going to? And I find that, you know, so things that currently happen in Nigeria, they've happened before. It's not new. But people act as if it's new because they haven't taken the time to study the history, you know. So for me, I was asking myself, you know, so I looked through the curriculum that of literature and all that, and I just kept seeing old books, and I was like, how are these students going to meet today's challenges? And I said to myself, man, I'm going to write something that should be in a curriculum or in any national curriculum in Africa that should help people understand who they are.
Before she left us, Chinedum read from her book, The Call.
The British have been gone for almost 50 years, dummy. You guys have terrorized yourselves far more than the British ever did. Well, that's debatable. He had started to defend himself again, but was cut off by yet another intrusion by the voice in his head. Yes, their quest was to strip the land, and they made no pretense about that. They came in search of lands to extract wealth from, but they at least understood that to extract wealth, they had to have a functional country. You and your cronies are only interested in eating a national cake you didn't bake, and you don't give a damn about ensuring that the nation from which you eat this free cake functions. Worse yet, you don't even seem to care if there's any cake left for your children when their time comes. The voice in his head was harsher now. The colonialists at least made an attempt at development. Not because they loved you, but ultimately for your own good. At least your grandfather got educated. Sure, you could always argue that a missionary education was to sufficiently subjugate the people so that their lands could be more easily raped. Yes, that is the case, he started saying, happy to be able to get into one of his favorite arguments. But you can't argue that your grandfather's education ensured that your father was educated too. And you, of course, had to better them all. You are a proud PhD holder from MIT. Not bad at all for selfish starts. You are a leader now. How are you better? Isn't it shameful that even within your small senatorial zone, there are still many illiterate young men and women? Hey, listen, I'm doing my goddamn best, okay? Kwesi was shouting now. And if someone walked in right now, he would be certified mad, but he didn't care. Thankfully, he was in the privacy of his bedroom though. But he doubted if he would have cared if he were in a public space. Why am I being accused as though I'm not even trying? I know I am. Am I not making efforts daily to do something? It is even the very same people I'm trying to help that are resisting me, happy in their despicable state. He tried to calm down, but he couldn't. He stood up and stomped around the room in anger. This isn't a nation. We're just an amalgamation of impossible tribal groups, doing our very best to model our already bad situation. It's like being forced into marriage, for God's sake. How can one possibly enjoy being forced to remain in a loveless marriage? To have a chance at being successful, we must extract ourselves from this loveless union, commence a new union of love, and then we get off to a great start. There, he had said it. The thoughts had been forming in his head for a long time, but he had taken an oath to defend the integrity of origin. Though thoughts of possible division of origin had occurred to him, he had never actually mouthed it. Mouthing those words was like taboo, but now that he had said it, he felt better, relieved, like the feeling of one releasing a long suppressed fart. But the voice, it wouldn't keep quiet. Instead, he retorted rather sarcastically, really. Yes, really, he shouted as though he could silence the voice. No such luck. I like your marriage analogy. It's brilliant. You've been married now 14 years, right? Yes, Kwesi answered, nodding his head vigorously. Can you honestly say that it has been love that has kept you through all the ups and downs? Have there not been nights when you wanted to go anywhere but home, but you've returned faithfully, angry, sad, depressed, disappointed, but still you returned? Why? Loyalty? Faith in the future? There was a pause. And a commitment to make a success of it and prove naysayers wrong. A subdued Kwesi added. You know, there were days I was convinced that I hated Jidem. I was sure I had made a mistake. I even filled out divorce forms. I just lacked the guts to submit them. Just thinking about those dark days made Kwesi laugh at himself. Now I can't imagine life without her. She's made everything come alive. Her advice has saved millions, to say the least. Our children, gosh, I know she's the reason they've turned out so well. Kwesi stopped pacing around and stretched himself on the bed. He had been filled with such hate and anger at the time. He saw no good in her. She was ugly, arrogant, disrespectful, and unloving. Now he wondered how he had ever thought of her in those unflattering terms. She was none of that. In fact, she was perfect for him. Even her flaws were cute. Now the voice in his head was calmer, less accusing. What does the amalgamation of origin have to do with the number of illiterates in your senatorial zone? Aren't you tired of using amalgamation as an excuse? Yes, origin was created for economic exploitation. Why does that have to be a problem? If it wasn't for intellectual laziness, that alone would be valuable. You were created to be prosperous. So go ahead and be just that. None of the ethnic groups that form origin can thrive efficiently alone. You all need each other. The problem is that, just like you and Jidem in the early days, you focus too much energy on your differences rather than your strengths, deriding rather than valuing yourselves. Consequently, your differences have grown larger than life to the point that none can see any good. Yet there is so much good that can be harnessed. The ethnic groups that form origin don't need a divorce. What they need is understanding, trust, and mutual respect. Just like you and Jidem learned. Stop singing this amalgamation song. Try another. Kwesi had no response to that. It was so true. Having lived in the US for decades, he had imbibed the value of looking beyond people's race, tongue, or class to their strength of character, and was at first amused to discover that almost everything in origin called for information on ethnic origin instead of one's capabilities. What did that have to do with anything? He had thought it odd at the time, but now he himself was as petty as everyone else in this regard. How low did things have to go?